on this computer. Okay. So I posted this morning, let's talk about like what is our strategy for transitioning people from digital to face-to-face, and that doesn't make sense for every church. So I'd love to hear like what is your strategy for your church online? Is your goal to keep people in church online and connecting with people in your church online community? Is it to get people into your physical church? Is it to create like small physical gatherings? We kind of have like a broad spectrum for church online. So what are you guys doing? Who's to go first?
I can jump in. We're doing all three, really. We do have members who just live out of state, out of country, and they will always be. But they, just last week, we had a Vision Sunday, membership drive Sunday, and we gave the opportunity for online people too. And two parents of one of the guys on staff joined. They tithed to our church. They give coats through our Christmas campaign. They watch the services. They watch the special conferences, and they said, we would just want to join. And so they just joined. But then we had a number of people actually coming to this. We had a special conference last weekend, and some people came from out of state who came in our family room, which is sort of our welcoming room where we also sit on the computers. But they said, we have been watching online and we have loved it so much that we're trying to get a job transfer to come live in your area so we can come to your church. And so
That's cool.
I've heard that story 3 or 4 times now in the last few months, where people are actually moving from Missouri, moving from Pennsylvania, and they actually want to be part of the church. They're so engaged with it, which is shocking to me. I mean, you would hope that would be the case, but that's sort of an extreme case for me to see people really saying we want to spend our time. These are people in retirement, approaching retirement, so they're looking for a place to relocate anyway.
That's really cool.
Come to Central Illinois with 5 inches of snow. I don't know, but that's
Now, and you guys, your main focus is really in your area, but then you also have an audience that is global.
It started that way. So probably 65% of our people watching online are local.
Okay.
And just out of town or whatever. But we have a good contingent now that's always going to be out of town. So we do small groups during an all-church study once a year. We've done some online small groups and things, but I don't know that our strategy for getting those face-to-face connections is really well defined.
Okay. So Tommy, are you guys similar where you're mostly focused on local area?
Yeah, I mean, we're majority probably still watch local. I mean, some of them may not be within like a 20-minute driving distance, a little further out, but it's still, I don't know. I feel like if you're within 60 miles, that's still, semi-local. And then we have some, I've got a few volunteers that are remote and, in other states. So we have a few that's in other parts of the country. We've got some that join us from Puerto Rico. We have a few people on staff here from Puerto Rico, so we've got families and so forth that they just love the church. And one of the things that we're trying, I was sharing earlier, was we're going to do an online small group. I'm looking for more people that are remote, that we can build on that where they could host gatherings in their area. They could host small groups in their area, and then branch that out so that it somewhat is more face-to-face than just, I guess, online. But I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. How are you finding those like groups of people?
Well, I'm just, next week is going to be our first session together as our online small group. So that was one of my ways, is to try to find those people, try to hold a small group once a week, build a relationship through those people. And then the other way is we're encouraging everybody when they watch us online to fill out a response card. We look for repetitive names. It's really neat. Like, I've got some of our volunteers, like, they know, they'll tell me, hey, so-and-so was missing today. And it's because they've come to know all the different names in the chat. And if that person doesn't chat that week, hey, they're missing. Something's wrong. Now, just because their screen name's missing doesn't always know we have their information, unless they, fill out a response card, or we build that relationship to know what their screen names are matching to who they really are. But we're looking for ways to do that. So I'm as curious right now for this conversation, because we do want to branch out in other areas. And, as far as people that are watching in other communities, not just have them, I watch online and that's it, get them to be able to connect with others in their local communities, serve and so forth.
Yeah, I think DJ and David would probably have some good feedback on how do you do that? Like, how do you get people from the online and figure out where there are those pockets and make that offline connection? So DJ, I know, is doing this right now with Virtual Church. They've been having meetups in locations. And David, I imagine you guys are doing something similar.
Well, yeah, so we're trying to enable some things for the platform to be able to do that. So for those of you I haven't met, I'm on the software team that does the Church Online platform. So the thing that supports thousands of churches that are using our stuff. Thanks.
And the new version's coming soon.
Yes. So we already have a bunch of churches. I think we had 50 churches that we brought into our beta program late last year. And that's going really well. And it'll be really soon now that we open up the general, like whoever wants to use it can use it.
Yeah.
Not quite the floodgates, but to let people start switching over so that they can use some of the new stuff.
Yeah, cool. So are you guys building in like the ability for people to see locations, so people can see where like the majority of viewers are looking, and if there's a pocket of people to be able to connect them?
We certainly want to do some of that. We want to be really careful in terms of privacy, and not be surprising anyone with what goes on. So obviously, as any website does, you get IP addresses, and those may or may not be close to where the person in fact is. Absolutely, in terms of sharing some of that stuff with the church admins who are running the site to be able to understand what's going on. Then there are also discussions that people say of like, hey, can you just show everyone a map of where everyone is? And then that sort of is pretty far down the spectrum of that may surprise people and may dismay people.
Yeah.
So we want to be really careful, but yes, we're working hard on what information can we share and in what way, such that it can really facilitate some stuff. Some other ideas that we had were making it easier for people to say like, hey, where are you joining us from? And maybe make that easier, make that a really nice experience, more than just chatting putting into the chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to do more of that. We want to enable that, but we also want to see what churches are doing, because we see our roles as coming alongside you guys and empowering you and giving you hopefully the tools that will make things easier and more effective for you all.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's see if Dee Dee has audio now.
Hey guys.
Yay! Okay, excellent. Welcome. Okay, so it's your first time, and Clayton, I think this is your first time to join us too. So Dee Dee, where are you from? What's your church?
I am from Bolivar, Missouri, and my church is the Hill Church.
Okay, and then are you church online pastor?
No, so actually I am about to meet with our church online pastors, because we're not really doing anything with our online campus right now. But because of some life circumstances, that's basically how I'm consuming church. So, and like how I'm attending and how I'm being involved on Sundays. So I just want to see us like utilize what we have. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And yeah, I'm excited to see what God does for sure.
Very cool. Well, welcome to the group. And then Clayton, I think, you've been to one before, right?
The one, yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so, my dog's going to come join us. So we've talked a little bit about what Tommy and Eric are doing. So the big question is like, today, a lot of us are doing church online, and we're really kind of focused on our local community. And then we have other people who are attending throughout either the country or the world. What are we doing to connect them face to face? And are you doing that? And if you're not, what are you doing? So we'll put you on the spot because Tommy and Eric have already gone.
Me?
Yeah.
Put me on the spot? Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to Dee Dee. Wow.
I'll make
Okay.
Dee Dee do it next.
Well, so just for those of you that I've never met, I'm Clayton. I'm the product manager for the Church Online platform at Life Church. Been on staff in this role for about 2.5 years. And yeah, I mean, our whole focus, as most of you guys know, probably at least having experienced CHOP a handful of times, is we're all about community around content. And so we want to be able to create an environment, allow churches to create an environment where people who, not only for people who either can't make it to a physical building or want to be offsite for another reason, but we want churches to have a tool where they can actually create a unique campus in an online space. And so my day-to-day is thinking through, okay, what are the problems that churches who are stepping into online ministry are trying to solve through online ministry?
Yep.
What are they experiencing now that could be solved through technology? And then obviously the really fun part of my job is, what are the really cool things that we could provide that may not be expected, or, parity features that could take church online to a whole next level. And I think I kind of caught the tail end of what David was saying, but, we love being able to sit in with a group of people like you guys. I was actually just talking to Tommy a couple weeks ago, one-on-one, and just kind of understanding the different perspectives and the different use cases, and the different audiences that you guys are reaching, because all of that information helps influence where we want to take the Church Online platform as a product. So
yeah,
happy to be here. Sorry I was late.
No, I think this is great. And since there's 2 of you from CHOP, we may redirect the conversation a little bit, because I'm sure well, it's probably
there's the backlog right there.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was admiring your Jira board on the TV. Mine looks about the same right now. I think mine might be worse, but yeah.
It's about 3 yards that way from where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah. Yay, as you wave at each other. Oh, and Jan was able to make it. So
awesome.
People. Yeah, so Jansen, I'll put you on the spot too. I know it looks like you're probably on your phone also, but
I tried to log out of my phone, but it's not, like, it shouldn't still be there. That's weird.
Let's see if I can kill it. Let's try it. I'm a little nervous if I do, because it says you won't be able to rejoin. We'll just pretend it doesn't exist.
No, it went away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing church online. You've been doing church online for a long time, and I think you and I have talked before about how are you doing groups, and you're really focused on local too, then going outside of local. So what are you doing for like groups and face-to-face connection?
So we have groups via Facebook, just that are not real face-to-face. It's just text. We have a group that's pretty large. It has a few hundred people in it, that has been going for a couple of years, and they have incredibly robust conversations. And then we also have groups that have been going for quite a while that meet via Zoom. Mm-hmm. And we're looking to expand the number and types of those groups that we have in 2020. So.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of us are doing more online focus groups, and if we happen to get face-to-face groups, that's great, but it's not necessarily our focus. Is that an accurate statement? Yeah. So do you feel like we need face-to-face groups?
So I may have missed part of the conversation because I was driving back from lunch, so I was on my phone, but what I think I heard you guys talking about is how to move people from online into offline face-to-face.
Yeah.
For our church, we are hyper local focused. We made that decision a few years ago. We started out thinking that we had to be like Life Church, and nobody liked Life Church. So So we discovered that really is not the DNA of our of our church, nor should it be. And so I would say that for us, the majority of our groups happen face-to-face anyway. And our church online is supplemental, or I would say 95%, probably 99% of our people who join church online are plugged into the physical campus every chance they can be.
Okay.
And online is just a supplement for them versus the other way around. And I know there's a lot of churches who are not that way. And so for us, the face-to-face is not a difficult thing. It's not something that we have to really struggle to make happen. It's, for me as the online campus pastor, the challenge is figuring out how to seed the vision of using online as a supplement for groups when people are traveling. Or, you know, we've had a couple of life groups who've done kind of a hybrid situation where they'll meet in person, but people who can't make it, they'll have a camera in the room, and the person that's traveling or whatever will be able to join via Zoom so that they can participate in the conversation when they're not there. I also think that, especially right now, the way that our society is, everybody's so stinking busy, that for busy families, an online group may be a fantastic option when otherwise they couldn't fit an in-person group into their daily schedule because they've been working for, 8 hours a day. They're away from their kids for 10 hours a day. They come home, they have dinner, they put their kids to bed, and good grief, they do not need to be able to go out somewhere and meet. So online groups then, to me, would be a fantastic option to be able to let them have some breather space with their family, but also connect with other people in meaningful conversation in an online group.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up an interesting, as you were saying that, one of the things that came to my mind is online groups can serve different types of purposes, right? Like are we simply trying to do discipleship and teaching, like, here's your new member class, or what are the tenets of our faith? But they can also serve the personal interaction and trying to build relationship. And it might be very intentional to do one or the other. So where you have face-to-face groups and you can supplement those with online when people aren't around, or having online groups for people who are really busy, it would be curious to me if any of you are doing online groups specifically for just like discipleship purposes, or if you really feel like the relationship part is the thing you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like, because there's different reasons why we do groups. Why do you do certain types of groups? And when do you, what medium do you do them in is probably a bigger question. I'll be quiet till someone answers.
Well, ours take two forms. We do Zoom groups for face-to-face interactions, and then we do Facebook groups. And the Facebook groups, the most successful ones we've had have been people who have said, we're going to do a book study, a book of the Bible, or a book that deals with biblical issues, and then they just invite people to watch, follow along. They'll do a Facebook Live session and chat. So that would be more of I would say more of a growth group, but also there's some social interaction there. But then the Zoom groups, we've tried to do those as really along with our all church studies, and really it's a study tool time, but it's also disciple making, but it's also connecting people, just giving them a place to belong and stay. So I don't know if they fall into the categories you're defining, but
I think content-based is probably a good way to define it.
Content-based, okay.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, both of those are content-based.
Yeah, and I think the Facebook group is a perfect way to use that, right? Because it's not necessarily the face-to-face. People can make connections over time.
Right.
But it's consuming the content.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not an online pastor, but I know that there are good reasons to have both groups that are being very much led that are one to many, where one person is preaching or teaching or, whatever, that because that is very good for someone to be coming into the church who doesn't know anyone yet.
Yeah.
And yet you want to also at the other end of the spectrum have ones where this is a meeting of peers, where everyone knows and loves and, has a relationship, has an ongoing relationship with other people. I feel like you can't just have one or the other. You need them both, and you need opportunities to be moving people, from one to the other.
Yeah. And I do like that because of tech, we have different platforms that cater to each style too. Yeah. Okay, what else do we have? Those are kind of all the questions I have. Let's see. Yeah, those are kind of all the questions that I had on the list for the week. So what else do you guys have?
What has been effective for you guys in terms of getting people moving from just being a spectator into any kind of a group? What is a mechanism that has been working? And the reason I'm asking is I'm always thinking about like, what can we do in the Church Online platform to make that easier, better, smoother, et cetera?
And I don't know the features that you have coming out, but any kind of interactive Zoom type of technology that we could use during midweek or during the week or after the broadcast is off the air, that would be terrific. So that's where I've had trouble piecing together. How do we capture these people, and then after the broadcast, do I throw them to Zoom? Do I throw them to Facebook? I don't know what to do with them. So
yeah.
So that's a question mark more than what we're doing. And we've just we still feel new at this. We've got a lot of small groups, 300 small groups in person, but we just feel like we're dabbling in the online groups, and they seem to fizzle after 6 or 8 weeks. That we haven't been able to really sustain them, except for some of these, like the Facebook groups, where they're a little more personality driven, where someone follows the personality who is leading the group, and they'll have different content, but it's in some ways related to the personality, not necessarily the structure or the method. So I haven't been able to crack that nut. Sorry, not many answers for you. But.
Don't you feel like that's the same with in-person groups too, though? I mean, you have membership fall off in any group. It's not just in online groups, in my opinion. You can start out with, I lead a group of high school girls, and we started with like 22, and now we have 3. So I think that it's just it's human nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel like the personal connection every week of the, hey, I just want to make sure you're coming, is almost what you have to do. So that might be something for you, David, is if we're trying to figure out how to use CHOP for groups, like how do we keep the communication so that we can almost see when people are attending and when people are missing a group, and provide the ability for them to follow up as the group leader. It's almost like the CRM side of the house that we don't have yet. Yeah,
and there are ways that we can do that without necessarily re-implementing Zoom, because I'm not really that interested in
right.
in doing all that. Mm-hmm. But there are things that we could do to say, like at the end of the service, we were, Jen and I were talking at CITN about this. At the end of a service, do you say somehow, hey, we're going to go into Zoom conversations, to talk more about this, tap here on this button in order to join the one about the message of the sermon, or tap here if you want to talk about marriage topics or whatever it happens to be. Because there are ways that we can facilitate that in the platform without having to recreate wheels like Zoom.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
So, I mean, that had just been some ideation that we had at CITN. To those of you who weren't part of that conversation, would that work for you guys? Would that be interesting?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, is that any different than a link we pop up there on our own? I mean, we could do that now, right? So we could just put our ongoing Zoom link in CHOP now.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. A lot of these things could be done by posting a link. There are also some ways that we were talking about for an online church service that is pretty large. You might not want to have everyone going into the same Zoom conversation, and so like maybe a way of divvying it up by geographical area or interest topic or what have you. But yes, a lot of these things could be done with URLs.
We're trying to automate it for you, Eric.
That'd be great. And I also, church of 5,000, we have 2,000 watching each week online. And so that's 7,000, and how to manage all those groups, how to make people aware that the groups are there, how to get people into the, funneled into the right group. So that kind of thing automated would be great too. But currently we're just not in that mode enough to, I'll post a Zoom link and one or two people will jump on and sort of fall off because they don't even know how to use Zoom. I'm still shocked at the number of people. We have a URL that's live.eastview.church. And one of our people last week was telling me for our special conference, they didn't know what to do with that. They didn't know where to put that or how to type that in. And, it's a little different. They were typing www.something, and it wasn't a .com, it was a .church. And I was like, oh my gosh, just the basic things, which I shouldn't be surprised by, I know, but at some point I just assume people know, just type this in your browser. So I show them, and anyway, I just still think there's a lot of education to help people. I think anything we can do to make it easier for people to get funneled into something and click a button, and it's so much, anyway.
Yeah, so Didi, because you really you're attending right now Church Online and trying to connect with others. Like, how do you see that working as an attendee? Like, would you click on a group to go through after a service and keep the conversation going? And who would you want to connect with?
Okay, so I do attend online at my home church, and then I also have been a part of Crosspoint in Nashville. Mm-hmm. They are doing an awesome job with online church. And so with them, they make it super easy. They're throwing up links to Facebook groups, how to get a hold of the online campus pastor. And so I've been doing that for about 6 months, and I was just observing on Facebook and finally decided okay, let's just do it. Let's just click the link and see what happens. And this week, actually, I joined my first online small group with them. So I think it's just making it really accessible for people. That's what made it easy for me was, oh, this is the link, and they explain this link goes to whatever the description is. And so I think, accessibility is such a big part of it, I think, just because there is that varying, different ages understand technology in different ways. And so I think it's just how do we make that accessible for everyone where they all know what's happening and it's very clear and concise. And so that's something that I've really enjoyed about Crosspoint.
Do they just put it in their chat on the side, or are they also talking about it from the video?
Yes.
Both?
They put it in, they do both, and most of the time it's the link. They'll just throw the link in the chat.
Okay, cool. Hey, DJ, are you on? We'll see if he responds, because I'd love to hear what he's doing with VR Church, because I know they've been doing some physical meetups. And Kenny, you may know what DJ's doing.
You mean me DJ or DJ? Other DJ?
No, you DJ.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm doing some work, so that's why I was muted and other things. But I was listening. It was great. No, we don't have a physical locations because we exist entirely in the metaverse. But one of our projects that we're interested in doing is, we did an experiment this past summer where this, this VR arcade in Detroit, Michigan, let us come in and host a service there. It was really cool. We just wanted to kind of test the waters out and see what that would be like. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds with the physical interaction and then going into the metaverse for the sermon and the experience, and then coming out of that and having, interaction as well. So the hope is, or the idea is, what if we could do that globally? What if VR arcades across the globe in some partnership or licensing could, open up 1 hour every Sunday at their VR arcade for VR Church? So that's kind of our primary vision, to break from like, I guess, most churches plant physically and then go to the digital. We're starting in the metaverse and working our way out to the physical. So that's the one idea. And then the other one idea we're playing around with is an actual like physical location where I guess it would be similar to an arcade, but it would definitely be around the functions and the expression of the church. And so where people would come in, and same idea, I guess, but more in a more community, our own space type of feel, like you would go to, let's say a Life Church or something like that. And then, so that's one idea, and that people could come in with their own, or maybe we have VR equipment there, and we also stream. So for those that don't want to be in VR, they can still participate physically in the service by watching on the screen, or with the speaker that's live there. So yeah, anyways, that's maybe kind of a case out there, but yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking and what we're doing.
Okay, so I have to ask, why did you pick Michigan for your first kind of like physical thing?
Yeah. Well, I met a guy at the roundtable, Church of, what's that, the IT roundtable.
Mm-hmm.
And he came, I did a little session there, and he came and talked to me afterwards, and he says, I own one. I own a VR arcade. And later on, I called him up. I was like, dude, we should do it there. So, because I called around, because I'm in the DC area, Washington, DC area, and it was tough to try to find a spot. People were trying to, very expensive rates to rent multiple bays. It wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
one that we're trying to do. So anyway, so he opened his place up for free for like 2 to 3 hours. And so that's the reason. We just had a connection.
It was convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So are you aware of like where your people are coming from? Do you know like their physical locations when they come into digital church?
Yes and no. Yes, we used to have this tech where this globe spinned around, like when you walked into the church experience, and avatars would like circle the globe, and you would be pinpointed wherever you're at, so you could see where people were from. That tech is being reworked, so we haven't used that in a while. So, but we do know where people are from because we ask all the time. It's like one of our main, like, just natural. Hey, where are you from? That's like one of our first things, and it spans the globe like any church online experience would be. But yeah, so for some reason Netherlands is a hot kind of spot where people come to VR church. But yeah, so
cool, very cool. Okay, I have to ask, can you guys hear the my children have decided to clean the house, and they decided to do it while we were on this call. Can you hear the vacuum and everything? Excellent. Okay, I can't tell them to stop because you want them to clean. So, okay, Dee Dee, are you a teacher, or are you just in one of the nursery rooms? Your background.
So my house actually turns into a daycare during the day.
Okay, that makes sense with what I'm seeing in your background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Kenny, are you on? I'd be curious what you guys have done, because you work with a lot of different church onlines, and what you're seeing with small groups, whether online or physical. We'll see if he actually turns on his mic. Nope. Okay. Okay, we have 20 minutes. What other topics do you guys want to talk about?
I do have a question.
I'd be curious to,
Okay.
go for it.
No, go ahead.
I guess for us, we're just at the very beginnings of getting this started. So what has been your guys' biggest challenge, and what kind of advice, like what's the biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew when you started that you would give to me?
Don't try to be Life Church. No, in all seriousness, I think it's finding out how your vision for church online fits into to the mission, vision, and values of the physical church, and executing from that place instead of trying to be your own thing. I don't know very many churches who have a church online whose mission, vision, and values is separate from what's going on in their physical location, and it works very well. So I think going through that lens I wish we'd done that. Would have saved about a year.
for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of good models for doing church online, and what that means can really depend from place to place. So yeah, thinking through like, what are you really trying to do? Because some of them are saying our goal is to be a replacement for when people can't be in the physical building, and but we really want people to be in the physical building. And some people are completely on the other side of the spectrum, where they're like, I don't care if you ever come to the physical building or not. We are building the relationships, we're building disciples using a different mechanism. So figuring out how your church approaches that, and what your pastors and other leadership people feel about that, is probably one of the things that would be good to have the conversations around initially.
And from my perspective, just caring for people, just caring for people that come, and seeing what you can do to take care of them, help them, minister to them. In addition to all the big numbers and growing groups and all that stuff, it's just being available and saying, how can we help you?
Yeah, I would
let the technology work it out.
There are so many people who come to services, whether our church or another church using the platform, that are broken and hurting and need, someone who A, can pray for them, and B, maybe give them good advice, maybe not, depending on the situation. But they bring up things that they wouldn't be bringing up if they had walked into a physical building, even if they were willing to walk into a physical building. So it's a amazing platform for evangelism for a lot of people who just like, I think I need something, and they're, willing to hear and learn and be loved in a way that sometimes doesn't happen in the physical world.
Dee Dee, I missed it. Did you say you're on staff at a church?
I am one of the worship leaders. So we have 4 campuses right now. And yeah.
Okay. So I would say the other thing that that I would have done different is, instead of working in a silo, I would have earlier tried to educate the church staff and leadership about what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that they could help carry the vision of how Church Online can minister to more people in more places. We waited too long to do that, and now it's a little bit harder and people don't understand, and we've been doing this for 10 years. And so I think bringing them along the journey with you, rather than saying, here's this giant thing that we have, now you need to understand it. Bring them along on the journey with you and let them help you carry the torch.
Yeah, I had to step out for a minute. My Tyler needed me, but as I'm sure someone's already said it, like being clear on whether your vision for Church Online is really your local community or the country up front, because that dictates really how you establish your Church Online. And I think, Jan, we've talked about that a lot, like why you being local is so clear.
David, can I ask a strategy question of Church Online? Just how, the quickie, how many churches are using it?
It's about 3,000 something, depending on the week, but something like that.
And then we've been expanding, Facebook and YouTube and Roku and Apple TV, and so now we're quite diverse. And I'm just wondering if that's, we keep gaining every time we do it. It doesn't feel like we're sabotaging or cannibalizing the Church Online people, but I'm just trying to think from my strategic standpoint, should I still be directing people to the Church Online platform for particular reasons? Are you seeing experience in other churches where they're getting fragmented in these kind of different platforms and chat rooms? And what should I do, I guess? I know you have a perspective, so I'm glad to hear it.
Well, you should pray to see what God wants you to do. But my perspective is that there are a lot of different channels, and you can find people on all the platforms. We at our church, we do use, obviously, Church Online platform, as well as Facebook, as well as Twitch, as well as YouTube, and they are different sets of people who hang out in these places and who would be attracted to some of these. There are pros and cons for each of the platforms. One of the things that is unique about Church Online platform is not just that it's free, but that we have the one-on-one prayer possibility that is not really a possibility or not easily done in a manageable, safe way on other platforms. And that enables a lot of, as I was mentioning earlier, a lot of ministry to happen that wouldn't happen in a more public, single Facebook chat room. And so we use them all. And, yes, I am myself on the team that is doing Church Online Platform. And so we're trying to add features to make it better, but we're not trying to be everything to everyone. There are good reasons to use it. And if you have the staff, I would also use other things as well, like Facebook or what have you.
Okay, well, good to hear.
Sure.
Yeah, that helps.
I mean, there are some benefits also to the Facebook side that I, wasn't really selling, because it's like there's great value in having people join a Facebook group, because if they are a Facebook user, that is much more likely that they would be engaged the rest of the week and start to build some relationships that way. So that is a very good thing about it. But on the other hand, it's much more difficult if you have your hosts that are then sort of saying like, oh, well, do we friend someone that we just met on Facebook in this thing? And how does that work? And lots of complications can result from that depending on your use case, another platform may be better.
Okay, thanks. I can't hear you.
You're muted, Jen.
Oh, of course I am. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, sorry I'm late, everybody.
Better late than never. Okay, so now you could answer.
What's the question? The answer is 24. I wholly believe the answer is 24.
Yeah, so do you guys all do just Church Online Platform, or do you do Church Online Platform, Facebook, YouTube? Do you stream to different platforms? All of the above? None of the above?
All of the above.
I think
How
everyone
much
was
do you
nodding.
see like a variance between time? Like, and I'm assuming people are digging into Chop and staying in that for a longer time. Maybe they're less distracted than like a Facebook or a YouTube. Do you see stats like that similar, or is it consistent across all platforms?
Let me ask a related question, because this is something I'm very interested in. How many of you dig into those statistics or have people who spend time looking at that? Because when I have asked, a lot of times the answer I get is like, well, we occasionally look at the number of viewers, but we don't look any deeper than that. I'm really interested to see, for churches that do look deeper into the numbers, what do you use? What is relevant? What is important? And how does that enable you to have conversations with your leaders, and what do you decide differently based on those numbers?
So we do look at those numbers, and it's 40 to 45 minutes on Chop out of an hour and 15 service. So that's a really strong number we found for an average. YouTube numbers are 7 or 8 minutes, but we're having more and more YouTube people drop in and watch. So for YouTube, I feel strong about 7 or 8 minutes is really good. Longer than a cat video or something. So yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people, it seems like the Chop platform holds people longer.
Yeah, I know one of the features that almost every customer I talk to wants a viewer timeline. They want to be able to see what parts of the service people are really participating in and when their drop-off is happening, right? And so several of the customers I've talked to, they're really concerned about the 5 minutes after it starts and the 5 minute before it ends, and then looking at that average time and the average number of viewers, so they can determine how effective like worship is versus message versus announcements kind of stuff.
Yeah, at CITN I showed a slide of our new analytics page for the next version of Chop, which breaks that down. It has a graph there at the top with the number of unique viewers in each 5 minute segment as you go along. So yeah, we have that, as well as other breakdowns like, well, we're still working with the UI and we may change it around, but right now we say how many people came to the page, how many stayed at least 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10, 30 seconds. But I have found, just as I'm watching the platform to see what's going on, I'm really interested to see how many people are there for 30 minutes or more. And we can come up with different numbers. The platform is now able to gather the data and show the data. So thus my question about like what information is going to be meaningful.
Oh, that's really great. I didn't know that was, is that in this new version that's coming? Or we get our numbers from High Vision, our streaming provider. So, but if they're in CHOP directly, that's really nice.
Yeah, and we're having lots of conversations around, we can show a lot of information, but we don't want to overload people because most churches, they don't want to have 100 graphs, right? That's just going to overwhelm people. But so that's why I'm interested in knowing what are the conversations that you're having with other people, because then that can help us make sure that we're showing the right data. One of the ones that I am personally really wanting to do is to be able to have an apples to apples comparison between CHOP and Facebook and YouTube, et cetera. And so we're making sure to have the 30-second thing because that's what both Facebook and YouTube have. So that you can compare like to like in that sense.
Yeah, we're trying to include the like Roku stuff too, which is harder to do. But yeah, it's great to be able to compare each one. So you're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, because there was a conversation I was part of where someone brought up a number and then brought up another number on another platform, and they're like, "Whoa, you're counting completely different things here." But unless you have someone who is more of a data person and has spent time thinking about it, they may just get a completely wrong impression and make the wrong choice because of that.
Yeah. The other thing that I really want is the return stuff, is how many people are returning after they come once, right? Like, do I have a 27% return rate? Is it 50% week 1 and then 25% week 2 and then they never come back? Like, that stuff to me is really important from how effective are we?
Right. Yeah, I've also been thinking on this, and yes, we could do that. I mean, we could do a full cohort analysis, but I don't know how many people would really understand it if we started showing that.
I know.
And so some churches would be really interested, and what we want to be able to do is have the information for the churches who actually do have a data person, whether on staff or just, willing to help out. But we also need to boil it down to what is the number one thing that most churches are going to be satisfied with, and will help them make the right decision without all the data.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, two things. Christ Journey, they actually separate church online, the CHOP, from social media. Like when they analyze it at this point, when they do the data entries, it's church online, and then they call it social stream is the other category, because for them, they're looking at the longevity. Eric, I don't know if they're pulling 45 minutes. That's impressive. But they're pulling a longer out of the CHOP than the other. I always, when I was online pastor, the thing that I always threw out was the returning percentage, and I was pulling it out of Google Analytics, so it wasn't maybe wholeheartedly accurate. There maybe been some fluctuations based on that, but like to me that was a touting point. This isn't like people doing flyby, typing some random thing on Google, landing on the page and leaving, never to be seen again. These are people who are looking for a community and are engaging with our church online for spiritual direction. Like that stat that Jen's talking about is what validated a lot of the arguments against we're not interested in creating community. The answer is, well, whether you want it or not, community's happening. Are we going to do something with the space, or are we going to be stupid? Forgive the language. But that's really the heart of it. And so the more that CHOP can generate some of these stats to help some having these conversations, man, to me that's ammunition. Yeah, tweet that. That's awesome. That's ammunition out there to address. Put my name next to it, Deer Fetch. That'll be even better. Anyway, we're good. I don't know, wherever y'all are at. What do you think? Like, what stats? This is a great question, David. What stats are helpful? What are you looking for?
And my elders asked me 2 weeks ago. They said, how many are these are returning repeats, ongoing people? So they want to know, and where they're from. They want to know, are they local or dispersed? So they would like to see that sort of mapped out. I started showing them some maps that, they just were blown away. 48 countries, or however many zip codes we were in, and they're like, "Wait, is this normal? I mean, maybe this is just normal." I went, "Well, yeah, it's actually it's very normal for online ministry." But anyway, they're just very intrigued by all of it, and they'd like to know. I'd like to know too. I mean, it would be helpful for grouping purposes, like we talked about earlier.
Well, and Eric, let me ask you this question, because I've talked with churches and they're like, okay, I want to know if they're within the 15 mile radius, call it the city limits, and whether they're outside of that, like within the state or on the other side of the country. Like that's kind of the grouping. So it's like either within the physical boundaries of the or outside of the physical boundaries of that church. Does anybody else kind of feel that?
Yeah. Yeah, because you treat them differently, right? The 15-mile radius, they're likely to show up on my campus if I do something. The state may be, and I might be able to connect them with other local churches if my goal is face-to-face. And then the country, it's more of what can I do for them online.
Yeah.
And I think the third category is still important, though. The groupings around the country or in other places. We have a lot of transfer residents who have been moved from Illinois to Texas or to Georgia. We've got some data centers for State Farm, and when we look at the zip codes there, they're like big populations of people, but we're not really tapping into that. We're not starting new campuses. We're not starting microsites, but we could. And so when I see that on the graph, I'm like, oh wow, maybe we should really intentionally go after those pockets.
Yeah.
Say, hey, do you guys want to get together in a home or get together? Can we help you?
Yeah.
So I think the local and then the non-local, but then there's these pockets. I would like to get that third data set also.
Yeah, and that's something that Jay Crandon does really well. And I think that's something that Life Church is doing really well too. Like there was conversation a few years ago when that you guys were doing something. I don't know if you still are, but at one point those pockets of people, we were being really intentional about trying to create physical meetups for those people.
Yeah, that absolutely happens. I mean, some of the data isn't analyzed, whether it's for should we open a new campus there or should we just do a regional meetup there. All of those things happen. We don't have like super hyper accurate information. A lot of times you're not going to know if you're within 15 miles of the campus because the IP address is just not that specific.
Right.
But a lot of times it is going to, at least in the US, tell you the state. And so that's at least a start. So we would have that information that we could share. But Jeff, absolutely, the breaking it down by people who are returning versus first timers, that is on the short list of things that we will be adding to the analytics page. Some of that breakdown such that you can just get a sense. This has been awesome. I need to run to another meeting, but interested in all the feedback. Thank you guys for this. We want to be partnering with you all in figuring out how to do this together. So thanks for having me on the thing.
Thanks so much. 100 times thanks for the software.
Yeah. David, I'd love to follow up and chat with you a little bit about analytics just to see what you guys are doing.
Okay, great.
So I'll message you.
Deal.
Okay. Okay. It is 12, so we're at the top of the hour. So thank you guys for participating. It was great conversation this week.
Thanks for jumping back in, Jen.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, Jen.
Yeah, and I'll post the video. I'm so glad you were here, Dee Dee. Thanks for joining us, and come back anytime.
For sure.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll post the video. What do you guys want to talk about next time? Anything burning that we should try and line someone up for? Okay, I'll make up a topic. And if you think of one, text me or message me, and that way I can get people on that are the right people to have the conversation with. Okay? Sounds good.
Good.
Thank you guys for joining.
Bye.
See you next month.